So the update that allows Pokemon Go to connect to Pokemon Home is finally live, and it is the shining gold standard of the modern Pokemon business model, which is to siphon as much cash out of you as humanly possible. Now, this was largely always the case with the abundance of cute merch, and to a minor extent, the games, where most generations released 3 copies of relatively the same game, with minor differences between them. Some generations had up to 4 of the same game. Granted, Black 2, White 2 were a huge step up as they were sequels, whereas Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon were more or less the same as their less ultra counterparts. No other franchise could get away with releasing 4 slightly tweaked versions of the exact same game. But that's not good enough. They need more. Pokemon's recent trends and approaches to monetization have been a lot more blatant, aggressive, and predatory in nature, all at the expense of the consumer and their overall enjoyment. In order to transfer from Pokemon Go to Pokemon Home, you need transporter energy. From what I've been able to gather, you can run into situations where you can only have enough energy to transfer 1 Pokemon. The amount of energy used depends on the Pokemon being transferred. Once you run out of transporter energy, you need to either wait a week, yes, an entire week, a whopping 7 days or 168 hours to transfer a single Pokemon in some cases. Or, you can graciously open your wallet and sink around $10 of your cash to obtain 1,000 Pokecoins, the in-game currency that is the only known way to recharge the transporter at a rate that will allow you to transfer all of your Pokemon before you die of old age. Old Game Freak games used to have a similar time restriction, but the limit was 24 hours, not 168. I cannot put into words how absurd this is. Joe Neutral Merrick, the arbiter of truth in the Pokemon community, had this to say: "The mechanisms behind this are just 100% behind making a profit above the user experience. I don't care whether it's Niantic or the Pokemon company behind it, it's wrong." I can get behind that. Joe makes a good point. It is wrong to compromise user experience in favor of satisfying the bottom line, prioritizing profit over the consumer. But this is nothing new, and is only the latest addition in the long line of anti-consumer practices prevalent in the Pokemon franchise as of late. There are several examples of this very same thing in both Pokemon Home and Pokemon Sword and Shield. Granted, it's not nearly as extreme as the embarrassing and scummy transporter energy system, but the sentiment remains the same. Staple features of past titles are arbitrarily removed in order to be reintroduced behind paywalls, to help pad out premium paid content to incentivize consumer transactions. Take Sword and Shield for instance. Ever since Pokemon Emerald all the way back in 2005, multi-battles have been featured in battle facilities like the Battle Tower. That changed suddenly in Sword and Shield when multi-battles were removed from the Battle Tower in order for it to miraculously return later behind a $30 paywall in the Crown Tundra DLC expansion, rebranded as the Galarian Star Tournament. This most certainly detracts from the user experience in favor of making a profit. While the unique character interactions of the Star Tournament are charming, the multi-battles featured here are way more limited and less challenging than in past titles. In titles of old, you could team up with friends, which has significantly more lasting appeal than character dialogue that you can just look up online for free. There was also a level and Pokemon cap which served to make battles more fair and even, generating increased difficulty that raised the stakes, making the overall experience more enjoyable. A free multi-battle update would have been an excellent gesture, but that would make their new multi-battle feature less appealing, which could hurt the bottom line. Follow Pokemon, a fan favorite feature, is also locked behind a paywall. This would have been an excellent free update for all players to enjoy, but instead it is limited only to those who fork over an additional $30 on top of their initial $60 purchase. And even then it's limited to certain areas and can't be used anywhere in the base game. The mechanic has been severely bastardized and is an unrecognizable, shallow, and downright insulting attempt at follow Pokemon to those who have the pleasure of experiencing how the mechanic should be in Let's Go. So not only do you have to pay to access follow Pokemon, you're paying for a severely downgraded version. Surely this must detract from the user experience. Cut Pokemon make a return, but they too are locked behind several different paywalls. There was a free update to make these Pokemon compatible with any copy of Pokemon Sword or Shield, but there's no easy way to gain access to these Pokemon in the base game outside of paying for them in some way. You either have to trade someone, which requires a Nintendo Online membership, transfer them from Bank, which requires a subscription service, to Pokemon Home for a small fee, and you can only transfer up to 30 Pokemon at a time if you don't have a Pokemon Home subscription, or pay for the $30 DLC. The only realistic way to gain access to the cut Pokemon without paying yourself is to trade a friend who has paid for you and then trades them to you via local wireless. It would be extremely easy to include cut Pokemon in the wild area of the base Sword and Shield game. This would add additional post-game content for those uninterested in paying for the myriad of different services being shoved in their face. But they weren't added, because that would disincentivize additional spending. This most certainly detracts from the user experience in favor of making a profit. The GTS, a staple, beloved feature since Pokemon Platinum back in 2008, was removed from Sword and Shield and placed into Pokemon Home. The GTS is technically free to use in Home, but if you refuse to pay for a subscription service, you are limited to a mere 30 Pokemon, which only gives you access to around 3% of the total 898 currently available Pokemon. The GTS was hard enough to initiate a trade back when you had access to hundreds of Pokemon in the cart titles at no additional cost. This renders it almost completely unusable unless you pay out of pocket to make it better. The GTS can also only be used on the mobile version of Pokemon Home. The Switch cannot use the GTS even when the DS was perfectly capable. The GTS is significantly more cumbersome and way less useful than it's ever been all these years. These restrictions serve to make the user experience worse in every way, in favor of profit. $10 to trade a single Pokemon is offensive and egregious beyond words, and surely no one would defend such disgusting business practices, right? Right? You would think so, but Pokemon has the most ferocious and dedicated consumer-friendly base I've ever seen. This is completely fair. I don't get why these comments have to complain about everything, lol. Just wait a week, or pay money. Come on. I at first thought this person was trolling, but then they doubled down with, is it Pokemon fans' first nature to complain about everything like entitled kids? I think so. This essentially and unironically boils down to, just consume or shut up and take it, lol. According to this individual, it's completely fair to wait an entire week to transfer a single Pokemon, or to pay $10 for the privilege of transferring kilobytes of information that is provided for free by other franchises like Monster Hunter. That makes sense to them and is perfectly normal, reasonable, and acceptable. In fact, to them, it's unreasonable to complain or be upset about this blatantly terrible anti-consumer, pro-profit, money-grubbing, greedy exploitation. Doing so makes you entitled. You should be more thankful. The multi-billion-dollar corporation is in the right here, and they deserve your time and money, no questions asked. Incredible. Other people are pointing out that you don't need to pay for anything, while conveniently ignoring or failing to consider the absurd restrictions deliberately put into place to incentivize and encourage payments, which is more concerning than the paywall itself. I made a Twitter post a while back asserting that Pokedrones would not only consume loot box-based systems in Pokemon, but would put on a suit of armor and defend the inclusion of such cancer as if their life depended on it. People said I was crazy for saying such a thing, but look where we are now. I would argue $10 to transfer a single Pokemon is worse than my loot box hypothetical, and yet people are defending it against all odds. It's been a long while, but I'll end off with this. Don't settle for less. Fight for more. Thanks for watching, you guys.